Hey everybody, welcome back to another Sunday with Steve. Today's going to be I don't know if it's going to be a fast show, but it's going to be an easy show. We're just doing a dessert today because I have so many other things going on. I pulled all my beets. I'll show you some pictures. I pulled some beets the other day. All my beets were ready. I harvested them. I boiled them and do all the things you're supposed to do, and then jarred them, and busy between work and this and gardening. It's just crazy. So we're just going to do a dessert today. I've really been craving tiramisu. But the problem with tiramisu is, how do you eat tiramisu if you want it low carb, sugar free? Well, I saw a bunch of ideas and I used some of my own, and we're going to try it today. Is it going to work? I don't know. What I did first was I made one of our keto breads. I made this earlier in the year for the show. It's basically using almond flour. It's a very low carb bread, extremely low carb. It's almond flour, but with this, if you go back and you watch the recipe how to make keto bread, I'm using this instead of ladyfingers today. I'm going to use that as my ladyfinger substitute. And what I did was I took a little bit of our swerve, about maybe a tablespoon of swerve sweetener, and added it to the batter just to sweeten it up just a touch. I don't want it really sweet because I'm assuming all this other stuff we got going on here is going to make it really sweet, or sweeten it up enough, and you don't want to over sweeten it, you know what I mean? So in my sauce pot here, we're going to start. We got to make our pastry cream next. So do your keto bread first because that's got to cool down. In here I have a cup of coconut milk, full fat regular coconut milk, a cup of that, and a cup of almond milk. Now this is the unsweetened vanilla almond milk. Okay? So these two things I'm going to put in my pot and bring them to a simmer. We're going to be making our custard like we normally do, or pastry cream. But you start with that custard base. So you want to bring this just to that simmer level. You know, like we do. Just a couple bubbles on it, a little steam wisping, not full rolling boil. Too hot, because as usual, we have to incorporate our eggs and whip those into there. And temper them and the whole bit. And if this is too hot, your eggs scramble. And then you're screwed. Then you got to start all over. Alright, so we're going to bring this just on a medium to low heat. Yep, medium to low. Just bring this to that barely simmer point, okay? I'll be right back to tell you what we got to do with this stuff while that's getting to that point. While that's coming to our simmer, in a bowl here, I have a half a cup of our sweetener, our swerve we're using, our artificial sweetener, okay? I have a tablespoon of cornstarch. That's going to act as our thickener, obviously, when we combine all of this stuff. And just a pinch of salt, okay? So now I just want to whisk all of that stuff together. To this, I'm going to add 1 full egg and 3 egg yolks. So save your whites, your 3 egg whites for an omelet. Do this early in the morning so you can eat your omelet right away, because this is, once you put this all together, has to sit in the fridge for a while anyway. So I'm going to take those eggs, the 3 yolks and the full egg, whisk them in with my dry ingredients until I have it all nice and smooth, okay? Okay, so that's all ready to go. Now, I'm going to take my cooled down keto bread. Make sure you make it early enough, like I said, even the day before. Let it cool down, a couple days before, it's up to you. What I'm going to do is cut this into thicker slices so they almost kind of resemble a lady finger. I don't know. I mean, maybe if I cut them in half, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to lay these into our pan that we made them in. Okay, that we made this in our loaf pan. We're going to lay these down into there and build our tiramisu in a loaf pan, okay? But try to get a nice uniform slice, same thickness, okay? You could even toast these a little bit more if you wanted to, if you want a little more crunch, because remember, we're going to soak this classic tiramisu. We're going to soak these with a little bit of coffee and rum. That's going to kick that up a little bit. So, you know, when we layer it, we're going to pour that over the keto bread ladyfingers and soak all of those, and then put your pastry cream, make our layers, the whole bit. You know what tiramisu looks like. Maybe you never made one before. I never made one before. So It's nice for the first one to make one that I can actually eat. Alrighty? So I'm going to finish slicing this, get that to my simmer point, and we'll be back. So as you can see, I'm taking this off the heat now. We got our little bubbles and a little bit of steam. So here's my egg mixture with my sweetener and my cornstarch and stuff. Okay, what I'm going to do, very little bit at a time, drizzle a little bit, and whisk as you're doing it. The idea is to temper the eggs slowly because you don't want them to scramble. If you dump this whole thing in there, you're done. Okay, so just little drips at a time, just till you incorporate some of that. Okay. It smells really good so far. Okay, you can smell like the coconutty and the almond milk, which is really kind of cool. I'm interested to see how that's going to taste in a pastry cream. I'm thinking it should work pretty well. Okay, so now whisk this back into the rest of the milk in the pot. Make sure you're whisking, okay? We're still off the heat. We didn't turn the heat back on yet. Right now we're just tempering and incorporating our egg mixture. That's it. That's what we whisked in. Now I'm going to take my spatula just to make sure I get all of this back in there. Okay. Done. Whisk. Okay, now, heat back on. Very low heat. Very low. We're just going to whisk and let this thicken up, which is exactly what it's going to do, okay? It gets that like loose pudding kind of texture is what we're looking for, okay? We want that to loosen up. I'm going to switch back to my spatula just so I can scrape the bottom. Just in a back and forth motion. Make sure you're scraping the sides. Make sure you're scraping the bottom. We don't want it to burn or to stick or anything like that. Okay? So just do that for a couple of minutes until you see, it could take a little longer. It depends on how. I've never did this with almond milk and coconut milk. So I don't know if there's enough fat in it to do what it's going to do like normal. I don't know. We're going to find out. So just cook it for maybe about 10 minutes or so just to see once it gets to that thickened up loose pudding kind of point. Alright? Okay, so we're going to take this off the heat now. Okay, we cook this. It's like a very loose pudding. Okay? What we want to do now is add a teaspoon of vanilla and 2 tablespoons of butter. Okay? And we're just going to whisk those in. We're off the heat now, okay? We're just mixing in these final ingredients here before we put it into our bowl. Put this into a bowl. Make sure I get my spatula and get all of this goodness out because we want a lot of this pastry cream. We probably have more here than we're going to need for the rest of this recipe, but that's okay. We'll just eat it with a spoon. It's like vanilla pudding, basically. Okay, so we're going to put that in a bowl, and then what you want to do is get some plastic wrap to cover this, and you want to make sure when you cover it, you push the plastic right down, touching the surface of your pastry cream or your custard here, because you don't want it to get that skin, and that's what happens if, when you make pudding and you put it in the fridge and you get that skin on the top. You won't get that if you push the plastic right on. Okay, so now we gotta wait a little while. I guess I got ahead of myself here by cutting my bread and everything, but that's okay because, like I said, this can sit out because you're going to soak this with booze and stuff later anyway. So I'm just going to get this into a fridge, let it get nice and cool for a little while, and we'll be back when it's cool or cold. Mix in the rest of the stuff. This is the pan we made our keto bread in. We're going to assemble our tiramisu. Okay, we'll be back. Okay, so there is our pastry cream all cooled down. Looks very loose. I just want to see what it tastes like with that swerve. Tastes like vanilla pudding. Alright, so what you're going to do to the pastry cream is you're going to add this mascarpone cheese, okay, which is a full 16-ounce tub. I think I'm going to need a bigger bowl. As always, I need a bigger bowl. Be right back. Okay, I got my mixer back out. I was going to do this by hand, but I decided, nah, I'm going to just do it with my mixer, with the the whip attachment, okay? If you don't have a mixer, well, then I guess you're going to have to do it by hand. Okay, so I'm just going to put this in there, the pastry cream and the mascarpone cheese, and I'm just going to, on slow, just mix this till it's all incorporated together. The mascarpone, because it's so thick, will thicken up this a little bit more, okay? Make it what we need for our tiramisu. Can't think today. Okay, here I have a half a cup of strong coffee and a half a cup of rum. I'm using Captain Morgan spiced rum because that's what I have. I must have released the Kraken one too many times because I don't have my Kraken dark rum. I don't know what happened to it. I must have used it all up. Okay, so while that cream is mixing, what I'm going to do on the bottom here, oh, I'd like to put a layer of this on the bottom. Okay, 1 second. We'll be right back. Okay, so there is our cream for our tiramisu. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit of this in the bottom of my pan here. Now, I have my loaf pan that I baked my keto bread in, so because that way it'll fit back in there. So what I'm going to do is I lined it with plastic, the whole bottom, okay? And I'm just going to spread a thin layer of this pastry cream on the bottom here, okay? Make sure the whole pan is covered with plastic and that it overlaps on the sides. You'll see why later on when this is all ready. Okay? Then what you're going to do is start layering. Take your sliced keto bread, or lady fingers if you're using, dunk them in the coffee rum mixture, and then just start layering them, okay? The bird is getting excited, as you can tell. He ain't getting none, so I don't know what he's screaming about. Okay, and then you just start layering them. That's all you do. And then you make a layer, then you put another layer of this, another layer of the bread, then finish with the cream, and then cover it up back in the fridge, and we'll take care of it later and finish it up, okay? So that's what we're going to do. We'll see in a little while. When this thing comes out of the fridge, I'll show you how to finish it off. We'll slice it, we'll taste it, talk movies, and that'll be it for today. Alrighty, see you in a bit. Okay, so there it is, out of the fridge, okay? And it's all covered up with the plastic, like I told you. Now, I made a little mistake. So, if you make the same mistake, do the same thing I did. I'm hoping it works. Oh, message. What it is I was only supposed to use 2 cups of the pastry cream with the mascarpone cheese. I wound up putting all of it in. It was probably close to, maybe a little more than 2 cups. But anyway, it probably made the cream a little bit softer than it needed to be. So, instead of putting it in the fridge, I actually put it in the freezer. Okay? To harden it up. Now, let me just make sure I peel all my plastic off. The reason why you put the plastic is, hopefully, that you can just invert this and it comes right out. Yes, like that. See? Wish I had a bigger plate, but that's okay. And there you go. There's our tiramisu, but it still needs the chocolate. So what you do is, I'm using this Hershey's Dark, and you're just going to tap it on the top, like that, through a sifter. Make sure so you don't get no chunky lumps of this cocoa powder. Okay, this is this special dark, which I think will work just as well. Okay, I'm getting it everywhere. It's all over my counter. I don't care. We're going to cut this up and give it a taste right away. Okay, let me grab a dish. It's probably going to be a little hard, like I said, because I had it in the freezer, but I don't think it's frozen solid, so let's see. No, that's perfectly fine. Look at that. Beautiful. See? Just like that. So now let's give this a quick taste. I want to see what it tastes like with this rum and coffee soaked keto bread rather than lady fingers. I mean, they kind of, I'm guessing, same consistency. Ooh, that's good. It's It's not as sweet as your traditional tiramisu. Like it's just sweet enough without being overly sweet. Really, really good though. And super low carb, super low carb, and sugar free. There's a dessert for you. Oh man, let me take a sip. Okay, let's get to movies because I gotta go sit down. Because don't forget tonight too, Season 7 Game of Thrones. If you're not watching it, man, you're missing out. Can't wait to get to that. I may have another piece of this later with my Game of Thrones. Okay, so we watched this week. The first one we watched was Jaws, which it's a classic. Love watching it over and over and over and over and over. Doesn't matter. Could watch it 100 times. I know every piece of dialogue. I just love it. Perfect. Second one wasn't even that bad. That's not on the list, the second one. Don't worry, it's not coming up. Second one was okay. And then it got really stupid after that. First one is the only one you really need to see. And the cool thing about it, too, is I've heard, I haven't read the book myself, but I know people who have, and they said there's a lot more to the story. Like, Brody's wife actually, I think, has an affair with the Richard Dreyfuss character in the book. Like, something goes on there or something. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to read the book. Maybe summer reading at the beach. That's on my bucket list, too. I know some places in Jersey have shown Jaws on the beach. Definitely want to see that, if I can see it. Next time they bring it around, I'm going to see it. But anyway, our other movie we watched was Taxi Driver. Remember I said I couldn't remember if I liked it or didn't like it. I thought that I didn't. Yeah, well, I didn't. I still don't like it. I know everybody talks about this movie, how great it is, but it doesn't do anything for me. You talking to me? Didn't do anything for me. But anyway, let's get on to this week's movies to see what we're watching. Our first movie this week, counting down, number 46, 1971's A Clockwork Orange, Stanley Kubrick. This one I have seen. I haven't seen it in a long time. I remember I kind of liked it, but it was really weird. So I'm looking forward to seeing this one again since it's been so long since I've seen it. And number 45, 1951's A Streetcar Named Desire. Now, I am a huge Brando fan. I mean, to me, he's the top. And I thought I've seen everything. I always confuse this movie with On the Waterfront, which I've seen a bunch of times, and is coming up, that's further down the list, On the Waterfront. So I always confuse the two and think that I saw this. I don't think I've ever seen this movie. So I'm looking forward to seeing it, because it's Brando, and it's a movie I've never seen before. Alrighty? So we'll see you next week, everybody. Enjoy your tiramisu. I hope you make this one. Remember, comment, share, like, tell your friends. Let's get this show out there as much as we can. And in the comments, give me your suggestions. I want to know what you want me to make. I don't know. Sometimes I get a week where I'm like, I have no ideas. Alrighty? See you next week.